In the Valley of Whispering Stones, where the cliffs sang soft lullabies at sunset and the wind carried the scent of lavender and pine, lived a shy little girl named Lira. She was the only child of the stonecarvers, a humble family who shaped the cliffs into windows, arches, and secret alcoves for travelers and birds alike. Lyra's hands were quick and steady, but her voice was as quiet as the moss that clung to the cavern walls, so she spent most of her days listening to the stones rather than speaking to people. One bright morning, a caravan of painted camels trudged into the valley, its travelers cloaked in colors that seemed to have been plucked from a rainbow. At the front rode a tall, silver-bearded man named Master Cowell, known throughout the lands as a seeker of lost stories. He carried a satchel of parchment and a brass compass that never pointed north, but rather toward the heart's deepest yearning. When the caravan halted at the edge of the valley, Master Cowell stepped down, his eyes scanning the towering stone faces with reverence. "The stones here speak of a hidden garden," he announced to the gathered villagers, his voice warm and resonant. "A garden that blooms only for those who truly listen, and within it lies the seed of echoes, a seed that can give voice to any quiet heart." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The stonecarvers exchanged glances, remembering the old legend their grandparents had whispered at hearths. Lira, however, felt a flutter deep inside her chest, as if some tiny bird had perched upon her ribs. She had always longed to be heard, but the thought of speaking in front of so many made her throat tighten like a rope. That night, under a sky quilted with stars, Lira slipped out of her family's workshop. She padded across the moonlit sand, her bare feet cool against the ground, and followed the soft hum that rose from the cliffs. The sound was not music. It was a gentle, rhythmic pulse, like a heart beating beneath stone. It guided her toward a narrow fissure hidden behind a veil of climbing ivy. She pressed her palm against the cool rock, and the stone seemed to sigh, parting just enough for her to slip inside. The passage twisted like a serpent, its walls glistening with dew that reflected the starlight, turning the tunnel into a river of light. After what felt like an eternity, Lira emerged into a clearing that took her breath away. The garden was a tapestry of colors that no painter could capture. Flowers of sapphire, amber, and violet stretched toward the heavens, their petals humming with a faint melodic vibration. In the center stood a single tree, its bark silvered with age, and cradled in its roots lay a tiny, radiant seed that pulsed with a soft golden glow. The seed of echoes. Lira approached, her heart thudding louder than the garden's own song. As she knelt, the seed floated up, hovering just above her fingertips. It seemed to recognize her quiet longing. When she gently cupped it, a warm current surged through her, and for the first time, she felt her voice forming, not as a sound, but as a luminous thread weaving through the air. "Thank you," she whispered, and the words shimmered, turning into tiny fireflies that danced around the garden, lighting the night with their glow. The garden responded, its flowers swaying in harmony, their hum rising into a chorus that echoed through the valley. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of wonder. She realized that the garden had not given her a voice to speak louder. It had shown her that her quietness could be a melody of its own, resonating with those who were willing to listen. She stayed in the garden until the first light of dawn brushed the cliffs. When she finally returned to the valley, the caravan was already preparing to leave. Master Kyle stood at the edge, his compass spinning lazily. "I sensed a change," he said, turning to Lira. "The garden has spoken through you." Lira nodded, feeling a newfound confidence swell in her chest. She stepped forward, her feet steady on the stone path, and lifted her voice, not to shout, but to share the story of the hidden garden with the villagers. Her words flowed like water over smooth rocks, clear and steady, carrying the wonder she had felt. The villagers gathered, eyes wide, as she described the humming flowers, the silver tree, and the seed of echoes that had taught her that being heard does not require volume, only truth. As she spoke, the stonecarvers felt the cliffs vibrate faintly, as if the very rocks were applauding her bravery. Children giggled, imagining fireflies made of words, while elders smiled, recalling the legends of their youth. When Lira finished, a soft hush fell over the crowd. Then a ripple of applause rose, not boisterous but warm, like the gentle rustling of leaves. Master Kyle stepped forward, his eyes twinkling. "You have found the seed's true gift," he said. "It does not give a voice to the silent. It teaches the silent to listen to themselves and to be heard by those who care to hear." The caravan departed, leaving behind a trail of bright fabrics that fluttered like banners in the wind. In the days that followed, the valley seemed to hum a little brighter. Travelers who passed through often stopped at the stonecarver's workshop, not just to admire the arches, but to listen to Lira's stories. She told of distant mountains, of moonlit seas, and of the garden that sang in colors. Each tale was a seed planted in the hearts of listeners, sprouting curiosity and compassion. When Lira finished, a soft hush fell over the crowd. Then a ripple of applause rose, not boisterous but warm, like the gentle rustling of leaves. Master Kyle stepped forward, his eyes twinkling. "You have found the seed's true gift," he said. "It does not give a voice to the silent. It teaches the silent to listen to themselves and to be heard by those who care to hear." The caravan departed, leaving behind a trail of bright fabrics that fluttered like banners in the wind. In the days that followed, the valley seemed to hum a little brighter. Travelers who passed through often stopped at the stonecarver's workshop, not just to admire the arches, but to listen to Lira's stories. She told of distant mountains, of moonlit seas, and of the garden that sang in colors. Each tale was a seed planted in the hearts of listeners, sprouting curiosity and compassion. One autumn, as amber leaves fell like whispered secrets, a storm rolled over the valley. Thunder rattled the cliffs, and rain hammered the stone paths. The garden, hidden deep within the fissure, began to flood with water, threatening the silver tree and the seed of echoes. Lira, now older and steadier, felt the same flutter in her chest, this time not of longing, but of responsibility. She gathered the villagers, and together they forged a plan. The stone carvers crafted a series of channels from the cliff's natural grooves, guiding the floodwater away from the garden. Children formed a line, passing sandbags hand to hand, while the elders sang low, steady chants that seemed to calm the wind. Lira stood at the garden's edge, her voice clear and firm, directing the flow with gentle commands. When the storm finally subsided, the garden emerged unscathed, its flowers glistening with droplets that refracted the sunrise into a rainbow of light. The seed of echoes pulsed brighter than ever, as if proud of the teamwork that had protected it. In gratitude, the garden gifted the valley a new blessing. Each spring, when the first blossoms opened, a faint melody rose from the cliffs, audible to anyone who paused to listen. It reminded the people that even the quietest stone can sing, and that listening is the first step toward understanding. Lira grew into a respected storyteller, her name spoken with affection across the lands. She never lost her softness, but she learned to balance it with strength, just as the garden balanced delicate petals with deep roots. She taught children that a whisper can travel farther than a shout, if it carries truth. And she taught adults that humility and courage are not opposites but companions. Years later, when Lira's hair turned silver like the beard of Master Cal, she found herself once again at the fissure, now familiar and beloved. The garden welcomed her, its flowers swaying in a rhythm that matched the steady beat of her heart. She knelt beside the silver tree, and the seed of echoes rose, glowing gently. She placed her hand upon it, feeling the warm current flow through her, now mingled with the many voices she had heard and shared over a lifetime. In that moment, she understood that the seed had never been about giving a voice. It had always been about weaving many quiet threads into a tapestry that could be felt, not just heard. With a smile, Lira whispered a final story to the garden, a tale of a shy girl, a hidden garden, and a valley that learned to listen. The garden answered with a burst of light that spread across the cliffs, turning the stone walls into a canvas of shifting colors. Travelers from distant kingdoms would later speak of the Valley of Whispering Stones, where the wind sang lullabies and the rocks echoed with stories, reminding every wandering heart that the softest voice can change the world if it is true. And so the valley lived on, its stones forever humming, its people forever listening, and the seed of echoes continuing its quiet work, awakening voices, nurturing listening, and teaching that the most powerful magic is the courage to speak one's truth and the kindness to hear another's.